Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.
Hi, I'm Padma. I'm a 37-year-old female. I was diagnosed about a year and a half ago, and I was 35.
Please don't forget that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. When you place your first order for AG1 NextGen with my link, you'll also get a free bottle of AG D3K2, a welcome kit, and 5 of the upgraded travel packs. Use my link, drinkag1.com/juicebox. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. If you or a loved one is newly diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and you're seeking a clear, practical perspective, check out the Bold Beginnings series on the Juicebox Podcast. It's hosted by myself and Jenny Smith, an experienced diabetes educator with over 35 years of personal insight into type 1. Our series cuts through the medical jargon and delivers straightforward answers to your most pressing questions. You'll gain insight from real patients and caregivers and find practical advice to help you confidently navigate life with type 1. You can start your journey informed and empowered with the Juicebox Podcast. The Bold Beginnings series and all of the collections in the Juicebox Podcast are available in your audio app and at juiceboxpodcast.com in the menu. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Cozy Earth. I am wearing Cozy Earth joggers right now. This morning, I dried off with Cozy Earth towels. Right after I rolled out of bed, on my Cozy Earth sheets. And you're saying, sure you do, Scott, because they give them to you for free. Actually, I paid for a lot of that stuff. I did get some of it for free. But you're going to save 40% off of everything you buy at CozyEarth.com when you use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. Use JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% off of your entire order. I'm having an on-body vibe alert. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Eversense 365, the only 1-year wear CGM. That's one insertion and one CGM a year. One CGM, 1 year. Not every 10 or 14 days. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Medtronic Diabetes and their MiniMed 780G system, designed to help ease the burden of diabetes management. Imagine fewer worries about missed boluses or miscalculated carbs, thanks to meal detection technology and automatic correction doses. Learn more and get started today at medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox.
Hi, I'm Padma. I'm a 37-year-old female from Western New York. I was diagnosed about a year and a half ago, and I was 35. First is type 2, like most adults, and after lots of fighting, got a type 1 diagnosis.
How did you know to fight?
Because I was super healthy before, I had no symptoms at all before my blood work came back. I'm a strong believer in preventative medicine, and I have had regular physicals for a long time. It's never been blood glucose, fasting sugars have never been beyond 90 to 100. I hadn't seen my primary during COVID, so I just figured, hey, it's been a while. I should go do my regular checkup. And I did that. And I was feeling great. I had no symptoms at all. But my fasting blood sugar came back at 275.
Okay. So you're thinking that not necessarily because like, hey, listen, I always take care of myself and I'm in shape, I couldn't have type 2. It's that you think you would have seen it creep up and come on because you were watching so closely.
I'm familiar with diabetes. I'm from India. We are sort of the diabetes capital of the world.
Congratulations.
I've had a lot of family members with diabetes. My family generally acts like this. It's been very different. I've traced it back to my great-grandfather, and all of us have different symptoms that never matched what I had read about type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
It was hard to explain before because my grandfather got diabetes at the age of 78. And he was a very fit person. It was surprising to everybody. He was biking till he was 78, did very long hikes and all of that. And he ate very healthy. He ate a plant-based diet, and none of it made sense. And his blood glucose would always be very high. I was in charge of his finger pricks when I was in high school, and fasting would be like 180, 190. Even though he was doing all of the things he was supposed to, it never made sense.
Right. Yeah.
And when I got it, it was a different perspective. I was like, oh, I feel it now. It's not normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have in your notes here. So not just a familial history, but like 4 generations of people. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's as far as we know.
It's far. Yeah. Right. Could be farther, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question that I'm just going to kill myself if I don't ask? When I see Indian families walking, why do they hold their hands behind their back? Why is that so like classic?
I don't know.
You don't know? Padma, I finally get somebody I can ask, and you're like, I don't know?
I didn't know that was a thing at all until you just brought it up.
Oh my God. I live somewhere where there's a fairly big Indian population, and a lot of older couples walk like in the late evenings, but the gentlemen always hold their hands behind their back when they walk.
I know a lot of Indians in my family. None of I haven't noticed that. It's like a school headmaster kind of thing, I guess.
Very much like that. Yeah. And I never have the nerve to ask my daughter's friends because I'm like, I don't want to be the guy who's like, hey, how come that's happening? But I thought, oh, she'll be able to tell me. All right. My second thing, oh God, I thought you were going to be able to help me with these things. The second thing I wanted you to help me with is, should I take my wife away for the weekend up in Western New York and like rent like a little cabin or something? Is that a good idea?
It's like super cold. This weekend, don't. We didn't get any of the snow that the other people keep harping about, but we're just pissed because our grocery supplies didn't come, so the shelves are empty. But it's been like super cold.
Too cold. Okay. All right. I'll wait till it's a little warmer. I just thought like, a place where we could light a fire and hang out for like a night or something like that. But all right. So there is a line where I don't want to be there?
What do you mean?
For temperature? There's a temperature line where I just don't want to be there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, I don't want to be here right now.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Then I won't visit a place where the locals are trying to get out of. Anyway, what made you want to come on the show?
My diagnosis was mostly from podcasts. I discovered your podcast much later, and it was a great place of information for me. Don't have much else interesting going on. Nobody else is inviting me to podcasts, so
this is your chance. Finally, I've got a reason to get on a podcast. All right, so let's sort of go through it. So you do the whole thing, go to the doctor, you're like, hey, maybe it's time to go back. Next thing you know, they say you have type 2 diabetes. And do you know immediately, oh, no, or do you start down that road with them?
Oh, here's the funny thing. They didn't say anything to me. So I'm a very active person. Mm-hmm. I'm a field engineer, so my work involves some field work. And this was all in 2023. I train for a bike ride I do a bike ride every year from New York City to Niagara Falls. Mm-hmm. It's a 7-day bike ride. And that in 2023, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this well this year. So I started training. I was feeling great. I had no symptoms of anything other than that I was biking much better than I was before. And I was slowly starting to lose weight. I thought, oh, finally, my biking and all my healthy eating is finally working. The day I went for my physical was the day after a 60-mile, the weekend after. It was a Monday, and the Saturday I had rode 60 miles. I felt great, and I had lost about 15 to 20 pounds since the summer, and the appointment went great. The doctor was happy with everything. I had developed some, my butt was really bad because I thought it was because of the biking.
Okay.
Thought it was hemorrhoids. I was doing all the home treatments for it, and I talked to him about it, and he just said, oh, yeah, no exam or anything. He just said, yeah, whatever you're doing from the internet is fine.
So you're like,
right?
called up and said, hey, my butt is bad. I think it's hemorrhoids. Yeah. And I went on the internet. He's like, yeah, that's good. Keep doing that. Today's episode is sponsored by Medtronic Diabetes, who is making life with diabetes easier with the MiniMed 780G system. The MiniMed 780G automated insulin delivery system anticipates, adjusts, and corrects every 5 minutes. Real-world results show people achieving up to 80% time in range with recommended settings without increasing lows. But of course, individual results may vary. The 780G works around the clock so you can focus on what matters. Have you heard about Medtronic's extended infusion set? It's the first and only infusion set labeled for up to a 7-day wear. This feature is repeatedly asked for, and Medtronic has delivered. 97% of people using the 780G reported that they could manage their diabetes without major disruptions of sleep. They felt more free to eat what they wanted, and they felt less stress with fewer alarms and alerts. You can't beat that. Learn more about how you can spend less time and effort managing your diabetes by visiting medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox. Spring is here. It is a time of renewal. You want to wake up every morning and go get it. You know what I mean? But how are you going to do that when your sheets suck? And you know they do. You know they're thin in some places, or they're too slippery and silky, or you're too hot in them, or whatever. And that wouldn't happen to you if you were sleeping on the same sheets that I am. Sheets that I got from CozyEarth.com. I know this sounds like a sales pitch, and in fairness, it is. But these sheets are the best that I've ever slept on. They make every day better, every sleep better. The lady next to me, she gets hot. This sheets help her stay cool. I am freezing cold because of the giant fan the lady puts on me, but under my Cozy Earth sheets, I'm neither too hot nor too cold. Now you're out of bed and you say, ooh, what's going to happen next, Scott? Well, you're going to get a shower and dry off with some beautiful towels. Then you're going to put on my Cozy Earth joggers or a sweatshirt or any of the awesome clothing that they sell. It's even possible that you took off your Cozy Earth pajamas when you got off of your Cozy Earth sheets. You're on the floor, ready for the day. You go to the bathroom, a wash, and then you tap yourself down. You get all your bits and your bingos and everything nice and dry. Then you slip on some comfortable clothing and you go about your day feeling good and looking good. Save 40% at CozyEarth.com when you use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. When you think of a CGM and all the good that it brings in your life, is the first thing you think about, I love that I have to change it all the time? I love the warm-up period every time I have to change it. I love that when I bump into a door frame, sometimes it gets ripped off. I love that the adhesive kind of gets mushy sometimes when I sweat and falls off. No, these are not the things that you love about a CGM. Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Eversense 365, the only CGM that you only have to put on once a year. And the only CGM that won't give you any of those problems. The Eversense 365 is the only one-year CGM designed to minimize device frustration. It has exceptional accuracy for 1 year with almost no false alarms from compression lows while you're sleeping. You can manage your diabetes instead of your CGM with the Eversense 365. Learn more and get started today at eversensecgm.com/juicebox. 1 year, one CGM.
Yeah, it's like just that, not even like a prescription strength medication or anything. And I said, like, well, I've been biking for a long time. I've been doing all of these. I haven't changed much. Why is this happening? They, oh, you've never been 35 years old before either. As old age happens, this all happens. And it's like, okay. And then he just said, don't bike for 2 weeks and you'll be fine. I was like, well, I have a big ride next month. I'm training for it. I kind of need to be training. It's like, if you want to do that ride, don't bike. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I went away. He ordered my blood work. I did my blood work. I wasn't expecting anything. The day of the blood work, I did feel, after giving blood and having breakfast, and I went off to work, I felt a little bit dizzy.
Oh.
I thought it was because they took too much blood from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I ate a little bit and then I was fine. I worked outside the whole day. We were having air quality issues at the time too. So I just chalked things up to that. And this was all just before the 4th of July weekend. And because we were not, because I was told not to bike, my husband and I decided to go on a hiking trip in the Adirondacks.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
I'm ready.
The 4th was on a Tuesday at that time. So Monday, the lab results came in, and that was the day I was doing a big hike. We were going to scale Algonquin, which is like the second highest peak.
Wow.
In the morning, while I was getting ready, the email came. I got my Quest alert saying my result was available. I looked at it. It was 275. I was like, I've seen high blood sugars before. I've never seen that high, even my grandfather.
Yeah.
Like, that didn't make sense at all. And then I went off on the hike. I did not tell my husband.
Why not?
I was too spooked. I was too shocked.
Okay.
I think I was in shock. We had a good breakfast, eggs and everything. I was like reeling. And then we went off into the mountains. No internet or anything. Just, me and my happy thoughts, just freaking out on my own. And I climbed up. The first hour or so was a little hard, but after that, it got very easy. I was climbing up and like heading way faster than my husband, and he was trying to catch up. I was like, I'm super fit. There's no way I have diabetes. I don't feel like any of the things that I'm supposed to. And then the next day was a holiday. Didn't expect them to call back. So I expected a call back on Wednesday when the doctor's office is back, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got nothing. I got nothing the whole week.
Really?
So I said, okay, maybe the internet is just wrong. Maybe I'm fine. And maybe they see this all the time. They finally called me back the following Monday. And the nurse called and I saw the number, answered it. And she goes like, hey, you have diabetes.
She didn't say good news. It's not hemorrhoids, because that's how I would have gone it. But
I'm like, no kidding.
how long have you been married? At least 20 years? 10 years?
Not that old.
How old are how long have you been married? Because I loved you were like, listen, we had a good breakfast. I didn't want to bring it up.
No, we were married 3 years.
Oh, no. Oh, a newer wedding. I see. You're like, listen, we had a nice breakfast.
Together, I don't know, since 2017 or so, we had like a COVID wedding.
Oh, okay. I felt like you were married forever because you were like, I knew this news was going to ruin the day. So I found myself feeling bad for you, Padma, thinking about you out climbing, but really just thinking about like your health the whole time, because that's what was happening, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was a super hard climb, and like I said, there were air quality issues, so my husband was struggling too, and he was carrying up like a 10-pound camera with him. So on the way back down, I had already fallen a couple of times in the summer doing all my activities, and my knees were bad. So it was like super hard coming down. And my husband wasn't waiting for long enough for me. So I was yelling at him. He had no idea that I had all these other things going on in my head. I was like, I was sure he was going to leave me.
Just keep climbing and leave you on the hill. Like, that's enough for her. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. It just made me feel for you, like thinking about all the stuff going through your head while you were out there.
Oh, this all went on for the next 3 months. So don't feel sorry for me yet. There's more to feel sorry for.
But the doctor's office calls and says you have diabetes, but then, they
were like, you have diabetes. And as though I was hiding it from them and left it for them to find out or something. I was like, well, you've known me for like 8 years. You've been my primary care physician. And she says, the doctor wants to see you right away. I was like, okay. He has an opening in 3 weeks.
Did you say, I don't think the doctor understands what right away means, but okay.
Exactly. I was like, no. I talked to the doctor about my bike ride. That's next week now. And that's in 2 weeks now. I want to be seen before that. Mm-hmm. So she says, you still have to do your blood work again. He needs you to do that. Get that book. We'll see you next Thursday. So that's the day I went and told my husband.
The day of the blood work?
No, the day the doctor's office called, because it was like a week since I found out. I thought maybe it was just a false positive or these things just happen and it's not that big a deal. And when they called it finally felt real.
Right.
So I made the appointment for blood work later in the week and went home and told my husband. We were both freaking out separately, doing a lot of research. In case I didn't mention, I'm an engineer, super nerd. My husband is a computer scientist, nerdier than me. Both of us went all into research mode and we're freaking out separately on our own all over the place. And I was in a very busy part of my work. We were working towards a grant deadline or multiple grant deadlines. So I was just pouring myself into work. And anytime I had a free moment, like in the bathroom, I was just researching diabetes and reading all about it. None of it brought anything much about type 1 diabetes. I've known diabetes for a long time, but nobody I knew had diabetes were ever classified as type 1 or type 2. It was just diabetes.
Okay. Did you find the research helpful in that early going?
Sort of. Most of the information online was only about type 2 diabetes, unless you search for it. Most of it just mentions lots of things about type 2, and they're like, there's type 1 too. There's mostly nothing you can do about it when you do a general search like that, right? So first, I didn't want type 1 because it definitely sounded horrible, but type 2 I couldn't believe that I was having it because like I said, there are lots of family members with diabetes. Some of them were diagnosed at my age, but my grandfather, from whom we all got it only at 78. So we thought it was just because he was very fit and stayed on a healthy diet. So if we did those things, we could also stave it off longer, was my idea.
I see.
That's why I was very active and focused on my food and focused on getting regular checkups and things like that.
Yeah. So you thought there's this, it happens in our family all the time, but this one person, the active one, the fit one, he made it into his late 70s. We'll all just kind of mimic that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if I stay fit, I felt like I was going to get it because, our genes are stronger than all the workouts. So he was fit, but he got it at 78. Right, so we're all just going to get it. But if we stayed fit, I could still lead a normal life was my idea growing up. But when it actually happened, it was like a whole other thing. I felt like I was prepared for it, but I was not at all.
Yeah. So talk about how it hit you like psychologically then.
It was a very odd feeling because I've seen other people, I've heard judgment just creeps in immediately when you say you're diabetic. Oh, he's not eating right, or they're not they're not being healthy and all of that. It makes you feel like it's your fault for getting it.
Yeah. And then does that keep you closed off from other people? You don't talk about it? Does that start the kind of like that cycle where it's not a thing you talk about with other people, so you hold it inside and then that kind of doubles on itself?
Yeah. I didn't agree with the doctors right away. So speaking to others was the hardest thing for me because they'd ask questions and I didn't have answers to that. And I'm not used to that. I've usually known what happens to me, or I'm big on solving problems. I'm very good at those things. I didn't believe in the answers that I was getting from my doctors, so I couldn't have a conversation. And people were starting to get concerned because I kept losing weight. Mm-hmm. So I've never cared that much about my weight. I'm 5'4", and I was about 170 pounds in May, 165 to 170. So I didn't pay a lot of attention to it because I was still active. Weight was not a big issue to me. But, I would have always liked to be very thin, but didn't care that much about it.
Yeah, so it wasn't a thing you had to think about or thought about much. Yeah. But then as you started losing weight, it became obvious there was an issue.
But I did track it. So one of the things was in May, we went on a hiking trip to the Smoky Mountains. I was incredibly thirsty during that trip. I was also eating a lot of, Southern food, heavy breakfasts and things like that. I just thought, I'm from Western New York. I'm going south and it's making me thirsty. I completely ignored that my husband was also from here and he was not as thirsty as me.
That wouldn't help the overall conversation you were having in your head.
Yeah. So at that time, there was no conversation. So I was eating a lot. It was a vacation. And I did fall on the third day of the hike. I would go up, I would climb to the top of the hill. I would be fine, but then I would be just so exhausted. I'd take a nap at the top.
Really?
Coming down on the third day, I fell. And I fall a lot. I'm a clumsy person, but that fall felt weird because there was nothing to trip me. We were coming down. It was flat. It was not a slope or anything. And I just fell hard and skinned my knee, tore my pants and everything. It was a hard fall.
I think we could call this episode Clumsy Hiker if you want to. By the way, find another hobby if you're falling down hills all the time.
Oh, I have a lot of hobbies.
Okay. Sometimes people say I'm very active, but then they go on to describe like a moderately active lifestyle. You're very active.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hey, was there any judgment from people because of your cultural background? Like, did people look at you and go, oh, it's the food. This happens to those people all the time. Like, were you getting that from people?
I think it was mostly from my doctors.
Okay.
So after my blood work I scheduled the blood work again. My A1C came back at 12.3.
Oh, gosh.
So that felt really bad. So the day I went and did the blood work again, I did the blood work and went to CVS or Walgreens and picked up one of the finger prick kits. It all brought back a lot of memories because I was in charge of my grandfather's finger pricks. Right. So I knew the old finger prick things where, you put a giant glob of blood and then it says too much blood or too little blood after like a 20-second thing. So all of those things were flashing in my head. I picked it up, came home and realized that they don't come with the test strips. I had to buy those separately. And the day I got the results is when I finally had time to get the test strips also. It was 12.3 and my fasting blood sugar on that day was like 280, even higher than the first one. I come home and try to test it. I'm putting a giant glob of blood all over it. It was like my husband walked in and it was a bloodbath in the dining table. He still calls that thing my vampire.
I'm laughing still because I'm imagining you at the store really having terrible memories about your grandfather, probably feeling like, I can't believe this has happened to me. Then you get home and open that box and you're probably like, God damn it, there's no test strips in this box.
Yeah. So when my grandfather had it, finger prick things were a whole new thing in India. Nobody knew about it. My aunt, my grandfather's daughter, got it at the same age as me.
Okay.
So when her father got it, she brought us all the technology. She had finger prick kits and all of that. Our doctors did not know that. Our kit was from the US and we had to wait for strips. We couldn't buy those locally in India.
Mm-hmm. When did you come here? How old were you?
I was 21. I came here in 2009.
Do you get home every year?
Yeah, I'm actually going next week.
I friends who go back every year. So I know it to be like a thing that they do very kind of religiously. How long do you go back for?
I'm just going for 2 weeks.
Is it culture shock for you? Have you been here long enough now that when you get back, you're shocked by it, or you're not?
Not particularly.
No, I think it's because the people I know are through my daughter. So they're kind of second generation here.
Yeah.
And the kids, it's interesting because they grew up here and they go back to India and they're like, sometimes they come back and they look a little stunned for a while. So you go back, visit with family a couple of weeks. Are you now the person who brings back diabetes supplies?
Well, sort of.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get some of them to use continuous glucose monitors, and it's not worked out well. The apps are not compatible in India and things.
Yeah, you can't bring them from America to there and just expect them to work.
The test kits and everything is better there now. It's easier to get strips if you buy a machine there than from here. But back then, it was just not there. Like, we would have blood camps where they test for diabetes, and we'd go in there and they just have these finger prick kits.
Mm-hmm. Does it break your heart a little bit? Because you want them to use the CGMs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm not done with my whole diagnosis.
Sorry. I won't pivot you. Go ahead.
I go to the doctor's office with my husband again, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is normal. It's just genetic. It's not your fault. That first meeting was actually very comforting, at least for my husband. And I kept asking about all the different things. Like, I had a lot of questions, like, why is this happening? And I thought, type 2 was insulin resistance. And I'm also a kickboxer. All of my training, I thought, was supposed to help with insulin resistance. Why is it happening? And my doctor didn't have any good answers, but he was very comforting. I asked him if the meter was actually right. When we had the meter, after my husband called it the vampire, when we finally figured it out and tested it, I was at 460.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it was really progressing quickly.
Oh, yeah. I was at 460 and I hadn't eaten. It was like 3 or 4 hours after lunch. So I knew that was very high. I thought the machine was broken, made my husband test, and he was at 90. Was immediately mad at him. I tested again, and I was still at 460, but I was still starving because I hadn't eaten in 4 hours. Sure. So I went ahead and ate, and we discussed if we should go to the ER. I was like, oh, what are they going to do? Just give me insulin? There's also all this fear about insulin. There's so many myths that sort of makes you, at least in my culture or in India, it was like, if you're on insulin, you're a bad diabetic kind of thing.
Yeah. So insulin's failure in your mind.
Yeah, it's sort of feared. I've heard things like, oh no, if a diabetic is mad, like my aunt we are generally short-tempered people with very little patience, but they would just blame it on the diabetes, right? Oh, maybe their sugar is high today, or maybe it's the insulin that's making them like this.
How many generations has your family been covering for being dicks with their diabetes?
Generally not the nicest. My grandfather was feared way before he got diabetes.
And later they just covered it up. They're like, that's his diabetes. Don't worry.
I don't think they cared. They were like, okay, fine, blame it on the diabetes. If not, I'd be an angel, I guess.
That's funny. Oh my gosh. So what did you do? Did you go to the hospital?
No, we didn't. No. So I was like, well, if my A1C is 12.3, it seems like I've been like this for a long time. Maybe it's fine, because the doctor's office didn't seem to care that much.
Do you not know enough about the numbers at that point to know that that's crazy, or were you talking yourself out of it at that point?
Like I said, our numbers for my grandfather was always high. Even when he was on insulin, he dropped a lot. We didn't understand type 1 or any of that. Mm-hmm. We just went by, whatever the doctor told us to give him for insulin shots. Like, once a month. They didn't do A1Cs back in 2000 in India. They just did fasting and postprandial.
Okay.
And based on that, the doctor would give us a number for the insulin, and that's what he would take. If he dropped low a lot, it was harder to manage. So when he was in the 200s, he was fine. So we just let him be.
I see.
So we thought that was fine. So my father has type 2, and it's very hard to get him to be compliant, because if he sees a number of 200 regularly, it's like, that seems fine.
Because that's what he saw with his father.
Yeah. So it's hard for us to wrap around that regular type 2 is different.
Yeah. And you're in the same boat then, because you've now seen it for a couple of people.
I mean, the doctor's office didn't seem to care. Any other story I read was like, oh, they rushed people right to the hospital, right to the emergency room, or things like that.
Okay. So you just figured you were on the family plan at that point. And
so I mean, we were spooked. We just didn't know what to do.
Okay.
And we went to bed very scared because I still tested about an hour and a half after dinner and I was at 560.
Jeez. Well, you have to be in DKA by then, right?
I don't think I ever went to DKA.
No? Okay.
So here's the thing. The next day I went to the doctor and told him all this. And he was like, oh, that's fine. Say, hey, I'm this high. Could I be type 1? Because, I didn't want to be type 1, but I wanted to cross that off. And he was like, no way.
Wow. That's a general practitioner still. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, I don't even trust that he went to med school. He's not my doctor anymore. Like, I'm an engineer. I know way more about medicine now than he ever helped me out with.
I mean, I'm fascinated that you told a doctor your blood sugar was 560.
Yeah. I was like, hey, is this meter right? I went to 560. Am I okay? It's like, I've never seen that high a number before. I didn't know the meters could read beyond 500. And he was like, oh, no, that's accurate. But don't, this is normal at diagnosis. Lots of people lose weight. So I had only seen him 3 weeks before, and I had lost 8 pounds in that 3 weeks.
Wow.
They didn't even bring that up. And the nurse was like, oh, yeah, we see this all the time. So it just made me feel like it's my fault. It's like, I got diabetes. And
yeah, I'm fascinated, though, that 560, losing that much weight, and you said the words type 1 diabetes to him.
Yeah. So when I asked about it, he just joked like, you'd be much higher if you were type 1 and you're too old for that.
Oh, God. So every misunderstanding was there,
yeah,
huh?
everything.
Yeah.
Like I said, internet's given me way more than this doctor. So I don't think he's a doctor. And then he's like, I'm going to start you on metformin and statins and lisinopril and all of that. Along with my high blood sugars, for the first time ever, my cholesterol was off too. The good cholesterol was everything was borderline, not very high. The whole metabolic panel was kind of weird, and my hemoglobin was high. I think my sugars were just that high, or I was close to DKA, that it threw all of my numbers off. Mm-hmm. So he started me on the regular things. And when I pestered about type 1, he said, okay, we'll test again in 3 months and I'll add the C-peptide test. That'll tell you if you're making insulin or not.
3 months? Wouldn't you be dead in 3 months?
Oh, it gets worse.
Oh, go ahead.
So he did refer to me an endocrinologist. And I said, well, I'm going on this bike ride next week. Is that okay? And he said, oh, no, you'll be fine. It's like, how often should I test with this? He said, just test every morning. Don't go crazy about it. I'm going to refer you to an endocrinologist because that's good practice. But I'm pretty confident he's going to send you back over to me and agree with my decisions.
Oh.
And I'll just see you every 3 months. We're going to manage this together. It's all going to be fine. Send me questions on the portal anytime and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay. And I left on the bike ride. It's a 7-day ride. Every day we ride like 60 to 100 miles.
There's no way you got that done. I can't wait to hear what happened. What day did you die on the bike ride and they had to take you to the hospital?
I did not die.
Oh, okay.
So the first day, I did 60. The first day is the shortest ride. I did 66 miles. And this is all for a cancer benefit. So
oh, my gosh.
There are some survivors who ride it and we are very well supported.
Yeah.
I got to like 50 miles and this is in the summer. So it was like a 90-degree day. I was sweating. I knew I needed electrolytes. I knew I needed food, but I couldn't bring myself to eat anything or like everything has carbs. And I just froze every time I got to a rest stop. I was drinking a lot of water, but I knew I needed electrolytes and everything has carbs in it. I just couldn't
bring myself
to eat anything. Yeah. And I knew I couldn't go on for long without fuel. So I got to like 50 miles and I wanted to test, but I forgot to grab my fingerprint kit, the vampire. I asked the medics and they didn't have it too. So, but we came up with a plan and looked at all the carb ratings and they helped me get some electrolytes, very low carb ones. And I decided I'll just stop at 50 miles. If we can't ride, we can get a boost right to the camp. Mm-hmm. So I did that. I went over to camp, grabbed my kit and tested right away. I was at 270.
Oh yeah, but you were still feeling that badly.
No, it was also 90-degree weather. It was just regular hot.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Biking in the heat and all of that. But I was at 270 after a 50-mile bike ride.
Yeah, right.
And almost no food.
Exactly. When was the last time you ate, do you think?
I had breakfast, which was mostly eggs and maybe some potatoes. I ate some fruit and things on the rest stops, but 50 miles should have burned it. I was at 270 and I was like starving. But when the food came out, I lost all appetite. I couldn't eat anything at all.
When's the next time you tested on that day?
I tested when I got to camp, and then I didn't test again. I think it was the metformin that was causing my appetite loss, and I didn't know at that time. They didn't tell me that all that will happen.
Okay.
So the next morning, I was still at 360. I barely ate anything. Everybody around me was eating like 3 platefuls, and I just sat there staring at 1 plate and barely got half of it down. I had to force myself to eat. And the next morning, I was like close to 300 at fasting. So I ate some eggs, didn't have any carbs, and got on the bike again. I rode like 30 miles. I was concerned. I tested, and I was down to 190.
Did you start thinking like this is going to be okay? Or did you start thinking I can't possibly go on like this?
I knew I couldn't possibly go on without eating properly, but I felt great while biking,
Oh, really?
I wasn't tired much at all.
You're like, for a person who's in so much trouble, I'm doing terrific.
I know. It's so torn. Yeah. And I had lost all this weight, so biking was really good.
There's enough mixed message in what's happening to you that it's still easy to ignore the other stuff. I think I'm following. I appreciate you telling it like this, too, because you're basically just drilling down on this one aspect of the diagnosis that I find really interesting, like the psychological game that goes on between you and yourself. You know what I mean? While you're trying to come to grips with everything. Yeah.
And I'm reading everything I can find about type 2 diabetes, because at that time they decidedly told me I was type 2 and I wasn't seeing any of it. Metformin is supposed to help right away. It's so great. It has so little effects for other people. So it didn't even cross my mind that it could be the metformin. I was having issues like bowel issues and things like that. That was all caused by the metformin, but I didn't realize it. I thought it was still the hemorrhoids or something like that. It wasn't difficult to bike with hemorrhoids. It would be hard to sit on a bike.
By the way, did you actually have hemorrhoids, or was that just a thing you made up?
I thought it was hemorrhoids. I don't know anymore. I decided I'll just stop testing anymore because none of it was making sense to me. And I also had a lot of work. I was working remotely at my office also because we had all these deadlines. And cut my rides short every day. Instead of riding like 80 to 100 miles, I was only riding like 50 miles.
Okay.
And working from camp because I didn't want to be like just obsessed with diabetes the whole time because it wasn't helping. None of the things that I was reading and my readings were matching at all. So I just went about what I was doing before, like eating normally or trying to eat normally, but I wasn't eating much.
Sure.
I was also taking stool softeners because I thought it was still the hemorrhoids and I didn't want it to come back. At the end of the 7 days, the whole week, I probably rode like 300 miles instead of the 500 miles I was supposed to ride.
Mm-hmm.
I got back and I had a deadline like in 2 days. I decided I won't test until then. I just kept on working. In the week, my husband was freaking out on his own because I wasn't a great communicator. And he had researched and loaded up on like healthy foods and salad recipes and things like that. He was taking care of feeding me. And every time he made the food, I was just upset. It made me cry that I had to eat like that now. This is my life. And I just focused on work completely. I worked for like 3 days after the ride. And when I was finally done with the deadline, I slept for like 14 hours straight. And the next morning, I started testing again because my endo appointment was in 10 days. And I wanted data for that.
Mm-hmm.
I was at like 300. After the ride, I was not able to do any workouts. I was just starting to feel sicker and sicker. I didn't realize that the metformin was doing that to me. And every day my numbers were over 300, fasting numbers.
Jeez.
And I was barely eating. We tried the plate method. My husband would look at the plate. He would try to eat as much as me. And it was like, this is like pigeon food. It's not enough for me.
Mm.
And I wouldn't be able to complete that plate.
Wow.
It would take me like an hour to like stuff the food in my face.
Mm.
And I was still losing like 2 to 4 pounds a week.
Sure. Yeah, you're not eating at all, and you have uncontrolled
and my numbers
diet.
Were higher and higher. My fasting numbers were like 400.
Right. You have type 1 diabetes without insulin, and you're not eating on top of that. Like you were on your way. You were heading out. So, my gosh.
And people were starting to notice. First, it was like, "Oh, you look great," and then like, "Are you okay?"
Right. No, they probably thought they were riding that bike ride for you. Seriously.
And there, everybody was concerned I had cancer because, that's a bigger fear. And when I said diabetes, like, oh, we don't know anything about that. But are you sure? Because you seem great. You seem to be biking really well this year.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's all the mixed messaging. It just and this is a 3-month path, right? From the beginning to that.
Give or take.
Okay.
It was very weird. So after that, the endo appointment finally came around, and I had all of this data. I had notes of everything that I had eaten on my phone. I made a table, so it's easier to show the doctor. I went. It was a 40-minute appointment, which was useless. That endo should not be an endo. He looked at my numbers. I showed him the phone notes app saying, hey, these are my readings and this is what I've eaten. This is the workout. I was just able to do some yoga every morning because I didn't have energy for anything else. There's all this news about, exercise can make it worse. If you work out too much, your numbers could go higher. It was just blaming everything I was doing and every life choice up to that point. I showed it all to the endo and he gave me a logbook, a paper thing, and he just threw it at me and said, hey, you can use this to log.
He didn't like your notes app?
Where I log with is not the point. I have this log now. Can you take a look at it? And he was like, oh, you need insulin. And I described this bike ride to him. And I don't want insulin. I'm scared. It can cause a lot of lows and I'm not comfortable with it. And he was like, well, but your numbers are high. You're not doing the right things. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, if it's type 2, if you're sure it's type 2, I should be able to handle it with diet and exercise, right? And he looked at me and like, yeah. But these meds should help with type 2. And he was like, yeah, well, they won't help on their own, though, but you need to focus on your diet and exercise, too. This has been my diet and exercise for the last week and for most of my life.
Yeah.
If I have to do more diet and exercise to stay alive, it's not happening.
How is that possible? Right. I mean, you are the most active person I think I've ever heard from. So, that must have been incredibly frustrating.
In all of this, none of them mentioned continuous glucose monitors. At that point, I did not know those existed.
Okay. My
fear around insulin was I didn't know how to dose. I didn't understand the math that we were told from my grandfather. Mm-hmm. Take this much. Once a month or once in 3 months, the doctor would tell us what dose to give him, and we just gave him that.
I see.
And I still thought that was the way things were done because, I just didn't know at that time. And my doctors were not giving me that, right?
So you were scared of insulin for all the reasons that we've covered, but over and above, because the last time you were involved with insulin was back in India with a type 2 grandfather who they would just do a fasting and then give you a number and then he'd get low all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's got to be frightening.
I said, I don't want insulin. And he said, well, we can put you on Trulicity or Ozempic. Those should help with type 2. And I said, I don't want injections or insulin. I thought those were all the same. And he said, no, but Trulicity is not the same as insulin, but this will help. So he added Trulicity. And I explained to him my bowel issues and digestive issues. Mm-hmm. And I said, he asked me about it. And I said, well, I'm also on stool softener. So I think that's what's causing my bowel issues. And he looked at me weird and said, oh, you don't need to do that. Metformin will give you bowel issues on its own.
You thought, oh, that's lovely. No one told me that.
Nobody told me about it. And then he went on to double my metformin dose.
I'll get you going. Don't worry. Here's some more.
He said, start Trulicity and showed me how to do it and all that and sent me home. And I explained the bike ride and stuff. And he said, you probably shouldn't do those things with your condition, is what he said.
Oh, now you don't get to do all the things you love.
It's like, yeah. It's like, well, what's the point of living?
Yeah. I understand.
I went back home. I called one of my cousins who was diagnosed around the same time as I was, and he was also very active. So I thought he would have figured out the answers, but it just depressed me more because he told me the same things. Like, I'm sorry you have it, but I haven't figured out a natural way to cure any of this. This is how we are, and everything you do will spike your numbers. And he was not in control at all. And it depressed me even more, and I refused to accept that. But I went home. All this time, I was trying so many things, not eating. The salads and things were not working. So I wanted to go back to my regular food. And my husband thought I was being non-compliant. I was just being...
Oh, gosh, it starts impacting everything.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not great at communicating.
No, you seem like you have a little bit of your grandfather maybe going on.
Yeah. So I also asked the endo about type 1, and he said, well, we can add a GAD65 test when you come back in 3 months. And I asked him what it was, and he said, it's an autoantibody test. That'll tell whether you have type 1 or not, but I don't think you're type 1. So I went back and I started reading more and more about type 1. I read some misdiagnosis stories. I just went back to taking all of these meds, and I was just feeling worse and worse. I kept dropping more and more weight, and it was a very confusing period.
Yeah.
And the more I read about type 1, eventually, once I found the right prompt words and got type 1 information, I felt stronger that I did have type 1. And I read about continuous glucose monitors and everything else, and it didn't seem as daunting, but I could not convince my doctors for anything. First, they prescribed Trulicity, and it made me even worse. The metformin was making me worse. So after a month, I decided to go ahead and do the test that I was prescribed, that I was supposed to do in 3 months. I did that, and my GAD65 came back positive, but my C-peptide was 1.8. It wasn't low enough. But the GAD65 meant that I had autoantibodies.
Mm-hmm.
By then, I had read about Tzield and everything else, and I wanted the other antibody tests. Contacted the endo on the portal, and he came back and said, like, well, you could still be type 2. And then I had asked, like a child, I asked, like, what does my GAD65 test mean? What does my C-peptide test mean? He said, GAD65 means you might have antibodies, but because you have high enough C-peptide, you're not insulin. You're still making some insulin.
Okay.
I was like, can I get the other tests?
Yeah, right.
Other insulin antibody tests. And he said, oh, we can add that in when you come back in 3 months if you're interested in something like Tzield. I was already past that for Tzield.
Yeah,
I
right.
was like, this is definitely stage 3 if it's type 1. I don't qualify for it. I knew that, and the doctor didn't. I was giving up on that endo. And then I found out that endo was not in my network, so we had to pay for him.
Oh, awesome bonus.
Oh, yeah. I did the test early because I was still hoping that it was not type 1.
Yeah.
In the off chance that it was not type 1, I was supposed to go to a higher dose of Trulicity in 4 weeks. I didn't want to delay that or cancel that. It was like a whole pile of things. And then I told him I stopped metformin because it's making me sicker. And he just said, oh, just go back to your old dosage if it's making you sicker. And I had Gilsipide or Gilpicide or whatever. I tried even that for a few days, and it all just made me worse. So I went back to my primary care and said, hey, can you just give me a different endo? And he responded and said, oh, you find anybody you want and I'll give you a referral. Looked up a research facility near my house and looked into the research of all the doctors. And there was one university group had a lot of researchers that had both type 1 and type 2. And I asked for one of those doctors, and he gave me a referral to them. But they didn't have an appointment for the next 6 weeks.
People are really trying to kill you.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, as you're now, like, you're stepping through this time period, once you're in that office with the endocrinologist and talking about GAD65, you are clearly educating yourself quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Because you're now talking more like a physician than the doctor is.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I guess the way you would expect or hope.
The endo told me about GAD65, and then I researched more. And by the time I did that test, I knew there were other antibodies. And I had read about, the Hangry Woman's podcast was one of the first I heard. She was on TCOYD. And then I started hearing more and more about, pretty much finished all the TCOYD episodes. And then I became this crazy person who's on the internet, posts my symptoms on everything. My primary care had given me a couple of books to read, which was just garbage, which pretty much said the only cure to type 2 diabetes is bariatric surgery and nothing else will work and things like that. It was a whole roller coaster for a few months.
No kidding.
And at some point, I did start sharing properly with my husband. He saw all that I was doing. I was experimenting very fast. And I had to tell him that, I've been where you are, seeing nothing working for my grandfather or my aunt or uncle. I know how you feel, but I don't have time to explain things to you because I'm just learning so much and it's an overload. And he started following what I was doing. He would see I was making better choices for lunch or dinner. And the next morning he'd come down and ask, what was your blood sugar? And I'd be like 400, fasting.
So, well, I mean, it was smart of you to get him involved because it's interesting, isn't it? Like, were you able to see he must feel the way I felt when I was helping my grandfather? And yeah,
it took me a while. We had like a big fight before I saw that because
Okay.
it was information overload for me. And he was overwhelmed too, but I was just not even seeing his point for a while. And then we had like a big breakdown. And I said, well, I see where you are right now. And I've been there for several years. But I just feel very strongly that the doctors are wrong and I don't have type 2. I knew all of the stories of all of my family. That really helped. And then we found out his insurance had a service called Included Health, or his employer provided that service. It's like a medical concierge service. So I could get a second opinion from them. So I uploaded all of my, it's an app. They assign an independent primary care who will talk to you and then get all your test results and present it to a specialist, in my case, to an endocrinologist who never sees me. So it gives an unbiased opinion. I uploaded all of my details to him. That should usually take 2 weeks because they have to contact the doctors and everything. But I downloaded all of my results, all of my chats on the portal with the doctors and sent it to them. And in 2 days, they came back and said, you have type 1 diabetes. One of my questions was if it was LADA. They said, no, it's not LADA. You're in full-blown type 1. You need to be on insulin. Your insurance and you need continuous glucose monitors. You could go for Libre or Dexcom, and it'll cost you this much with your insurance. All of these details in a 19-page report, and they send it to my primary care also, so they can prescribe whatever I need.
Mm-hmm.
The remote doctor contacted me right away and said, well, we've sent it to your doctor, but go ahead and you send it to contact them so you can get on meds right away. I did that. I forwarded all that to my primary care. And they came back on the portal and said, oh, the doctor doesn't think your insurance will cover continuous glucose monitors because you're not on 3 or more insulin shots a day.
Well, it's because my doctor doesn't know what they're doing. He's trying to kill me. These people are trying to help me. Yeah.
I took a screenshot of that and uploaded it on the second opinion portal. And that doctor called me back like 5 minutes later. It's like, Padma, I don't think your doctor read the report. You need a new primary care. And he was freaking out.
Well, I mean, I've been having this thought the whole time you were speaking. I've had this thought a number of times making the podcast. But if I just bullet pointed what you said and put it into ChatGPT and said, what's wrong with Padme? It would come back and say she has type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I posted on TCOYD's, they had a LADA page. I posted my story on that in the comments. And Dr. Edelman responded on that and said, oh, you need insulin. I was like, how do I get my doctors to test? And how do I get antibody tests? I asked my primary care to prescribe the other antibody tests. And he wrote back on the portal saying, oh, I don't order that type of test.
I think what they mean is I don't know how to read the test. I wouldn't know what value it was later.
Exactly. But they have internet. Anyhow.
Yeah, they have internet.
But
I know,
meantime,
right?
I already knew another another primary care that I knew through the Indian temple in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
And I contacted him and I said, hey, I need a new primary care. I told him my story and he thought like, well, I'm not sure that you're type 1 either, but with your numbers, you do need that. And I can, I'll see you in the next few days.
Mm-hmm. Jeez.
And I had a work travel trip coming up anyway. So I said, I'll do that and then come see you because any other primary care was like months out in appointments.
I see.
So went away on a work trip. I had stopped all my medications by then, found a new endo. I made the appointment, but that was out like 6 weeks. And went away on a trip with just, I ended up walking like 5 miles a day and I considered becoming an alcoholic for a while because that seemed to help my fasting blood sugars. But then I'm a lightweight. I couldn't handle more than a drink or two.
The drinking was helping your blood sugars and like maybe this is the answer.
Yeah. If I can't get the tests I want or anything.
Wow.
In the meantime, I also, when I posted on the TCOYD website, they came back with a link to get a home test, type1tested.com. I went on that and requested a home test kit. And I got a call back from them and they were really great. They were like, oh, you're sort of beyond the thing for you to be enrolled in the study. So we cannot send you the kit. I was like, well, you accidentally already sent me the kit. I have it on my desk here. They were like, oh, okay, then go ahead and send it. We'll test it for you.
You just live in New York, right? You don't live in like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is not to the 1970s or anything, in case you're wondering.
No, it makes it feel like you're just... I don't know what it makes it feel like. It feels like you're under a bridge asking random people, like, what can I do? Yeah. Oh, my gosh. It's incredibly frustrating.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the person who called from Type 1 Tested or TrialNet was like really great. Like all of that you're saying makes me believe it's Type 1. We'll test it for you, but it's I'm glad you found a new doctor because it's very common. I'm Indian, There's also the medical bias that Indians are Type 2.
Right.
Those doctors were just not willing to see that. So I sent like 1 drop of blood because I'm horrible at collecting blood myself. So is my husband. So together we managed to send them 2 drops of blood and they sent me the report back. I was overwhelmingly positive for 4 out of 5 antibodies. The 5th one they couldn't test because there was not enough blood.
Gosh.
And my GAD numbers, it was like, they sent me an email saying, when it's borderline, we may question it, but you're so overwhelmingly positive that there's no other diagnosis here. You are type 1.
Gosh, well, I am so incredibly sorry that this is the pathway that you had to follow through. But I have to say, like, on some level or another, I think this happens to people every day, all day long. Yeah.
Actually, I know that this all happened between end of June. By September, I knew I had type 1.
Mm-hmm.
I've read stories where people have gone 8 or 9 years. And I've heard people come on your podcast. There was an episode that you released like 2 days ago, the day I made this appointment. That person was still struggling for a diagnosis.
Honestly, there are times that people tell stories that take so long to figure out that it makes you think, like, do they really have type 1? Like, how did they stay alive that long with those problems? Yeah. But I mean, what I've been able to figure out, the best I can figure out, is that it's like a 1.5, like a lot of situation. And, you know, they do all these other things that kind of, you know, help it limp along and keeps it going for a while. And then all the stuff that you talked about is what they're running into in their doctor's offices as well, is just people who don't understand. They jump to conclusions. They have medical biases, and that all leads to this. And then the reason I appreciate your story so much is because you spent so much time discussing how it made you feel and how it caused issues between you and your husband. And, like, you know, it's not just the medical stuff, which is bad enough, right? It touches so much else in your life. You know? And
it's also the stark difference. When I was telling people I had type 2 diabetes and not believing it, I felt guilty that I had done it myself, or I could feel the judgment in people.
No, that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's touching your life in so many different negative ways.
I also realized that there were so many of my family members who were exactly like this. There are some, like the cousin I mentioned that I talked to, had this bias on insulin. He's not on insulin. He's probably type 1 too, similar to me.
And because of the bias and the shame and everything, it's not even something they look at.
All of the members of my family work very hard at their health. But to others, it looked like they're just failing as a diabetic.
Yeah.
Because they're going low or anything. So my great-grandfather died in 1948. He was on insulin. Mm-hmm. It was in pre-independence India that he was on insulin. We're not like a very wealthy family or anything. We were very lower middle class back then. Mm-hmm. And they still made the effort to get him insulin.
Yeah. He was going to die without it, most likely.
Yeah. So he survived, but eventually he died because nobody knew about all that. Yeah. And my grandfather was diagnosed at 78 and he was already old. I'm a very active person. He was as active as I am now at 78. And when he was tired or complained that things were not working, people just said, well, you're old. You're supposed to feel like that. But for the closest of us, it was really hard to watch him deteriorate so fast. He died like 7 years later of complications with his kidney and heart and things like that. But, you know, he had had a full life.
Oh, man. It makes me sad when it happens to older people, too, because when it happens to you when you're 78, they just think, oh, this is the end of your life. Yeah, don't worry about it.
If he's complaining that he can't walk 4 miles, it's like, well, you're an 80-year-old. That seems normal to most people.
Right. And also, you don't get any kind of care at the end of in those last years of your life either, because people just think, oh, well, this is the thing that's supposed to kill this guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They get that vibe like, oh, that's the thing that's going to get you, I guess. So then we'll just ride it out and you don't get any real assistance. And my gosh. And then listen, even then, like, you only talked this story right up until somebody actually told you what was going on. There's a whole other world that lives after that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you might not understand what they told you, or they might not have done a good job of explaining it. And how are you going to manage every day? Like, it's a bigger story.
Even after that, the care has been like the endo that I finally met. I've never met him in person. He's, I think, very old, but he has been researching with Ozempic for type 1s or newly diagnosed type 1s. There was an article in the paper about him the day after I made the main appointment with him about how he was able to eliminate insulin needs for newly diagnosed. So I met all of those requirements and I knew all of that going in for the appointment. And I had my antibody results by then. All of that helped. The new primary care that I had gotten, he didn't believe I was type 1 either. But then when I got all the results and showed it to him, he agreed. I asked him for more clinical tests for the antibodies. He had me write it down. He was writing it down and then just handed me the paper, like, write whatever you want, and I'll go make a copy so I can learn about these tests also.
Yeah. I think the internet has done away with people's ability to just believe that doctors are magical. That's for sure. Because now everybody can hear stories like this. Like, I mean, it's awesome that he helped you like that. But at the same time, think about that from another perspective. Just tell me what you want me to say. Like, oh my God, what the hell?
And even he wasn't talking about continuous glucose monitors to me. He explained insulin. The way I got insulin is even funnier. He ordered Lantus and Aspart for me or Nolog or something. I didn't get it the same. The pharmacy didn't release it because they needed more information. This doctor is really nice. He called me at like 6:00 in the evening because the pharmacy had not filled it. So they said they needed more information from the doctor's office.
Okay.
He called me to make sure I got my insulin, right? And I said, well, they didn't release it because your office did something wrong. So he called the pharmacy, discussed it with them, and called me back and said, go now, you should have the insulin.
My gosh. Did anything work out for you? Did anything work well for you?
Hold on.
Okay.
So I went and got the insulin pens. But they don't come with needles. And it was like 7:55 at night before the pharmacy closed at 8:00. So I sent him a text at night. I had his personal number. It's like, hey, the needles don't come.
I did a cold wind episode yesterday. I recorded one with a CDCES who works in a GP's office. And she just spent the hour telling me like crazy stories that you wouldn't expect. And the number of people who are given insulin pens, right, for type 1 diabetes, type 1, type 2 diabetes insulin pens. And then they track them for months and months, and it seems like the insulin's not working. And so they say, well, use more. And then eventually she was in a meeting one day, an appointment with a person. And, she said, well, I don't understand, like, what's going on? And it finally struck her. She's like, go through this step by step with me. And the person went through it step by step to come to realize that at the very last step, which is take the little cap off the needle, the protective cap off the needle, they weren't doing that.
Oh.
They were poking themselves with the needle and then injecting the insulin into the plastic cap, and it was squirting out on them. And she figured that out because he said, my fingers keep getting wet when I'm giving myself insulin. And she couldn't figure it out. Now you would think, what a crazy one-off story.
I thought you were going to say they were squirting it into their mouth.
Oh, she said other people injected into their food.
Oh.
But that's neither here nor there on the first story. Now she steps back and looks at everyone in the practice and says to herself, I wonder how many other people are doing this. And then finds out that it's fairly common that people don't take the cap off the needle and aren't actually putting the needle in them when they're pushing the button.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And she says, when you talk to the people, it's not because they're not dumb. They're not like not trying. She's like, they just got bad direction. And somewhere along the way, they don't see that little cap on the needle.
Or actually, no direction. Adults don't get any of the instruction that they do for kids.
I was fascinated by that story because I think it says a lot more about the teaching than it does about the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the next I sent him the text, and the next morning he called me at 8, and he was very grumbly. He goes like, well, the needles are ordered now. I was like, oh, I didn't know they didn't come without needles. And he goes like, I didn't either.
We're all learning together. Sadly, you'd think he might have learned. Oh,
this is great.
Yeah. You'd think he might have learned before he started being your doctor, but okay. All right, well.
So then I got my Lantus and Nolog, and then he had told me, like, start with 20 units of Lantus a day and then see how it goes and moderate it. Like, how am I doing this? It's like, test, like an hour after you eat or something. It's like, can I get a continuous glucose monitor? He's like, yeah, sure.
Well, at this point, you're making the decisions anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Considered med school early on. I should have done that.
Listen, it's possible. Well, not you, because you seem like you really researched, but, reasonable people like you who become doctors sometimes turn into doctors like that too.
Yeah.
Because then it goes back to teaching again. Like the teaching in med school doesn't really help them. I mean, I understand they're trying to jam a ton of information into them, but it's a high level, quick overview about a lot of things. Then you go out into the world, you're supposed to learn on the job, except apparently then the system's so busy that nobody has time to learn. So they're just constantly like they're doctoring with like the first 4 sentences of the medical book, basically. Mm-hmm. It's a bad system. It's reliant on people. People do not have the capacity to do what a doctor is asked to do. I'm not saying good doctors are bad doctors. I'm just saying in general, like the human mind, it can't hold all this information about all of these different possibilities. It's it's tough,
They charge us a horrendous amount of money to do their job.
They went to all that school and it was expensive. They got to make that money back somehow.
Yeah.
To do your job. Yeah, they charge you all that money, then you end up doing it.
Exactly. And I go every 3 months to educate them about things and pay them for it.
You should ask them for a copay every time you
Exactly.
go in. Yeah. I've told this story before, but I was once asked to go into another room at an endocrinologist's office and explain something to another patient. I was asked by the organization, like, could you go over here and explain what you just said to me to them? I'm like, wait, what? I'm sure that's not right, but okay. And then the next thing I know, I was introduced. Hi, this is this person. He's this girl's daughter. I'm going to ask him to explain something to you. Just explain to me. And then I had to explain like how I think about pre-bolusing to them.
Yeah. Oh, pre-bolusing. I had discovered that before I listened to your podcast because
good.
Aspart was taking me like 45 minutes to hit. I was supposed to take it and eat within 15 minutes. I could see in my CGM that it wasn't hitting right away.
Okay.
So I had to take it earlier and earlier. And the doctors, even my new diabetes educator and everybody said, you should eat right away. It shouldn't take that long. But they didn't consider giving me a different insulin until I asked them for it. I was on Lantus for the longest time, and it was just not enough. My A1C went from 12.3 to down to 6.6 within like 3 or 4 months of starting on insulin.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of effort. Lantus doesn't last a full 24 hours.
Yeah.
My new endocrinologist didn't change that either because they were focused more on Ozempic helping newly diagnosed.
Really? Like, I mean, isn't it funny, though, that you didn't get like Tresiba or a more modern insulin?
I asked for it multiple times and they kept saying, no, I really wish my doctors were type 1s too. But they kept saying, oh, it's supposed to act the same way. After like 6 or 7 months, I said, no, I want Tresiba.
Yeah.
Because Lantus is not working and I'm not leaving until you change it. And they changed it. And immediately my lows and things went away. It's way more stable. Only the last appointment, I switched to Fiasp.
Good.
I asked for Tresiba, you guys changed it, and I'm doing much better now. So I want you to change this also. Mm-hmm. And they did. Yeah,
they're not going to argue with you ever again, probably. You're probably in charge now. So don't let it go to your head. Hey, I think I'm going to call this episode Phantom Hemorrhoid. I've decided.
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate the vote of confidence on that one. I really think it's going to draw people in. They're going to be like, what?
I did think that too, because one of the other episodes that I had listened to, that person had strange butt issues too.
Hi. Are you trying to get me to call it strange butt issues?
Oh, no, I wasn't. And I didn't understand, I didn't realize that it could have all been just part of my diabetes back until I heard that episode.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, she had the fistula, the girl that had the fistula.
Yeah.
That blew up, like her
Yeah.
Her ass exploded. No, I remember. Didn't she have a fairly new boyfriend that had to help her with it? Yeah, that was horrifying. Anyway.
Yeah, I sort of felt like I identified that. I've known my husband for a long time. He's not going anywhere, but still. I was sure when all this happened that, it was only a matter of time.
Yeah. Oh, you're reminding me now, by the way. That's my favorite title of an episode, I think, because I called that one Butthole Adjacent. She was trying to describe that this hole just appeared, and she was trying to tell me where it was, and that's how it ended up coming out, the story. Oh my gosh. You and your husband are good now on all this?
Yeah. So at one point I was like wondering why this was just happening to me, all the Indian bias and all of that. And then I turned to him and looked at him and like, hey, you're Indian too. Does your family not have this? And he just went, my grandfather we had to amputate his leg because it was not so uncontrolled. Mm. And that was another thing that reiterated my family was working very hard at this.
No, I mean, the whole thing's just sad. I mean, Padma, it's just sad. Like, the whole thing is, I mean, are you okay now? Like, modern, present day, are you in a good place?
Yeah, I'm still not on a pump. I was taking very little insulin. I was put on Ozempic, and that caused me to lose even more weight, but it did help with my insulin needs.
Yeah.
At one point, I didn't need any bolus at all. Mm-hmm. I was just on basal, even with Lantus, and I was down to like 3 or 4 units a day.
Yeah. Arden's taking Manjaro. Mm-hmm. I'm sure she'll be thrilled when she hears this one day. But on the 7th day, when she needed to take it again, recently, she had her period. She really didn't feel well. And she's like, I kind of want to skip this today. And in that one day, the difference about her meal spikes is incredible.
Yeah.
Just like because the GLP is gone, it's not doing what it's doing. So, and it's not because she ate more or anything like that. It's just
I could notice that too. But my bigger issue was I'm not a very big eater. Even before all this, I eat just what I need, and I like eating good food. I went from like 166 pounds down to 112 pounds.
Wow.
When I finally started on insulin and everything, I was down to 122. And with Ozempic, I was very critically underweight. The treatment with Ozempic for newly diagnosed is you start at 0.25 and increase it every now and then. I went up to 1 unit at one point, but then I was losing weight way too much. It was just not healthy. So I requested that I scale back, and I was brought down back to 0.25. And I didn't tell my doctors yet, but I stopped taking it like 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if it's keeping your weight down that far, it's tough. I guess I should say that Arden's not taking the full dose. We're not microdosing it. Like, she's not taking a little bit every day. We inject the self-injector into a clean vial and then draw it out with an insulin needle and give her less than the 2.5.
Oh, you can do that by the clicks.
Oh, no, this one's a self-injector at all. It just goes in. If you're using Ozempic, then you did. Manjaro's just boom, like it gives you the whole thing. Oh, like
the Trulicity pen.
Yeah. It took us a while, but we figured out how much of that dose helps her blood sugar, but doesn't slow down her hunger.
Okay.
Because that became a problem for Arden too. Like we were like, oh, this is great. It's helping with her blood sugar so much, but she's losing too much weight.
It's not so much my hunger. It didn't affect my hunger that much.
Okay.
I just wasn't putting on weight at all. Generally not a big eater.
You're not hungry to begin with. Yeah.
All of this. And I was still eating the same thing, but I was just not gaining any weight at all. I scaled it back slowly, and now I don't take it at all. Okay. It's not affected. Maybe if I took it, I wouldn't. I'm on like 10 units of Tresiba at night, and maybe 4 units only for lunch and dinner. I work out, so that covers my breakfast.
Yeah. No, you have more of like Jenny's vibe about like if you're super active, that definitely is helping with your insulin needs.
Like this year I did this, I didn't do the 7-day ride. I didn't have time for it. I did only 2 days. And those 2 days I needed no insulin and I was still dropping.
Okay. Even no basal.
No basal. The day before the ride, I was already, like I had started my period. So it was, I need lesser once I started my period. So I reduced it to like 2 units the first day, and I kept dropping all through the ride, even though I had taken no bolus. I ate a lot of donuts.
What a bonus. Finally getting some donuts.
Yeah. And the second day, I skipped my basal too, and I was still fine for like hours after the ride.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Arden's needs drop when her period begins. Her needs drop too. It's
also that adults, when we are diagnosed, we still have more. Our C-peptide doesn't go down to 0 right away. Maybe because our immune system is more mature. When it hits, it doesn't fully decimate the beta cells.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to guess about that after all these years of hearing people's stories. But I mean, when people are LADA or are experiencing a slow onset, it can really go on for a very long time. And not for everybody. Some people's are shorter, but I mean, you're also eating well and doing a ton of activity, which I'm sure is helpful. And, you know, the Ozempic too.
Well, I can't do a whole lot. Like if I can do like an hour before I need a snack. Or I drop. So I have to adjust. I have to eat a snack. I swam this morning for an hour. Before that, I have to make sure that I go in at like 160.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
All right.
And I've also found that the Libre 3 is actually better than Dexcom.
You enjoy that better?
At least for me.
How so?
It was just widely inaccurate for me. I was on Libre 3 and I thought that maybe it was inaccurate before I discovered that Lantus was the problem. So my endo's office let me try a Dexcom. So I had both on at the same time. And the Dexcom was like over 30 off all the time. And it took like 3 days of calibration to bring it back in, to bring it closer to my actual finger prick value.
No, we don't want that. That's too long.
And the Libre 3, with the Lantus, it was struggling. Sometimes there'd be white spikes. So I thought the sensor was reading it wrong. But it samples every minute and it moderates it. So it's actually very close to my actual, my finger prick.
That's great. I'm glad you found something you like. Do you think you'll go to a pump if your needs go up, or No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really don't have an idea of what is like a minimum value for a pump.
I mean, you could use a pump now, but it seems like it's not necessary. I mean, meaning like you seem like you're managing well the way you're going.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you want one though?
I'm torn. Maybe it'll be easier, but I'm very clumsy, like I said. So I don't think I'll keep it on for very long. Even the Libre, I keep losing I hardly ever make it the full 15 days. I rip it off somehow.
Why are you clumsy? Do you think it's just innate?
Oh, that's another side of the family.
Oh, okay. That's so funny.
But I also do a lot of activity. So when I'm swimming,
sure.
I could like rip it up, or the sensor just fails sometimes. I found out that wearing it on my arm causes the sensor to fail more often. So I went with a longer bathing suit that covers my thighs, and I wear my Libre on my thigh.
Okay. Oh, you're figuring it all out. You really are. You really dove into all this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. I'm glad for you. I'm glad that
I
you
told
figured it
I'm
out.
a nerd.
No, I'm just going to say, you just turned your nerd onto the diabetes, it sounds like.
That's kind of how I live my life in anything.
Seems like it's working. Padma, I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you for taking the time. People don't know, but we talked about this before it started. You actually, and I'm glad this worked out this way. I had a cancellation. Usually my schedule's completely packed, and you had to cancel because of a work trip. So you jumped on to cancel and saw this opening, and that's why we got to talk today. So I love the kismet there. It's awesome.
Sorry, I ruined your.
You did ruin my sleep in today, but that's okay. I'm going to get a lot done today because I was up early.
I usually wake up at 5, so I don't feel very bad about ruining your sleep.
I don't understand people who get up at 5 o'clock, but okay. Hold on 1 second for me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening today. And don't forget to go to CozyEarth.com and use the offer code Juicebox to save 40% off of your entire order. Everything you throw in that cart is 40% off when you remember to type Juicebox at checkout. If you don't type Juicebox, you got to pay the whole bill. You don't want that. 40% off. Get in there. Get yourself some clothes. Come on. What are you going to walk around in that stuff you're wearing right now? I see you. It ain't good. Are you tired of getting a rash from your CGM adhesive? Give the Eversense 365 a try. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. Beautiful silicone that they use. It changes every day, keeps it fresh. Not only that, you only have to change the sensor once a year. So, I mean, that's better. Thanks for tuning in today, and thanks to Medtronic Diabetes for sponsoring this episode. We've been talking about Medtronic's MiniMed 780G system today, an automated insulin delivery system that helps make diabetes management easier day and night. Whether it's their meal detection technology or the Medtronic extended infusion set, it all comes together to simplify life with diabetes. Go find out more at my link, medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox. If you're looking for community around type 1 diabetes, check out the Juicebox Podcast private Facebook group. Juicebox Podcast, type 1 diabetes. But everybody is welcome. Type 1, type 2, gestational, loved ones, it doesn't matter to me. If you're impacted by diabetes and you're looking for support, comfort, or community, check out Juicebox Podcast, type 1 diabetes on Facebook. Okay, well, here we are at the end of the episode. You're still with me? Thank you. I really do appreciate that. What else could you do for me? Why don't you tell a friend about the show or leave a 5-star review? Maybe you could make sure you're following or subscribed in your podcast app. Go to YouTube and follow me, or Instagram, TikTok. Oh gosh, here's one. Make sure you're following the podcast in the private Facebook group as well as the public Facebook page. You don't want to miss, please. Do you not know about the private group? You have to join the private group. As of this recording, it has 51,000 members in it. They're active, talking about diabetes. Whatever you need to know, there's a conversation happening in there right now. And I'm there all the time. Tag me. I'll say hi. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.